Hi, I'm Jeanette Roche. This is Bridge City News. Here's a look at some of the stories we have lined up for you tonight. The PM continues to make deals overseas that align Canada more closely with European nations. Plus, a Calgary soldier who went to Ukraine to fight against Russia faces a painful recovery after being burned in a drone attack. And Alberta teachers set to begin 4 days of contract talks with the province after voting in favor of strike action.
Your nation, your province, your southern Alberta. From the heart of Lethbridge, it's Bridge City News with Jeanette Roche.
Thanks for joining us. Prime Minister Mark Carney continues to make deals overseas, deals that would align Canada more closely with European nations. So far, Carney has agreed to work more closely with Poland in areas such as defense, cybersecurity, and clean energy as they struck a new strategic partnership. Today, he met with German Chancellor Friedrich Merz and signed a critical minerals partnership that encourages the joint public financing of natural resources projects. Carney says key Canadian minerals such as nickel and cobalt have gone underdeveloped for far too long, while China and Russia dominate the global critical minerals market. And according to political commentator Brian Lilley, this is long overdue, especially since former Prime Minister Justin Trudeau said in the past that there was no business case for Canada selling liquefied natural gas to Germany. Lilley says the Liberal Party has now changed its tune simply because of the U.S. president.
You could put it down to two words: Donald Trump. And he has changed everything. And so Canada is now looking and saying, what can we do? Well, of course, our biggest, benefit are all of our natural resources straight across the country. Every part of the country has some form of natural resource that we are really good at exploiting and exporting. Well, Justin Trudeau said there was no business case for selling LNG to Germany when the German chancellor came here and asked for it. So look, I'm not going to be too hopeful. As with a lot of things with Mark Carney, it's wait and see. So they're going to launch talks to begin discussions about exporting liquefied natural gas, and he's talking about it in the medium term.
You can catch that full interview with political commentator Brian Lilley of the Toronto Sun coming up following Business News. And while on the topic of the Prime Minister's European tour, Carney also announced today that Canada plans to buy its next submarine fleet from one of just two suppliers, South Korea's Hanwha or Germany's TKMS.
These both two bidders, and since I'm in Germany, I'll refer to the German-Norwegian consortium, meet all the technical requirements, the capability requirements. That's why we've been able to accelerate the process. There's a clear difference in their ability, the two finalists, to meet those technical requirements, which are very demanding, because in Canada, submarine means weeks under the sea ice, as well as in the Pacific at the same time. So we need to be able to have year-round fleets in all three coasts under quite demanding conditions. So that's how the field narrows quite quickly. So it's a testament to both of these companies, both of these consortium, that they qualify. But the one other element that I would mention, which is, and I know the Chancellor is very conscious of this as well, is that our governments will be spending rightly a great deal of money to make our citizens more secure, to make the world more secure, to work with our allies to make the world more secure. We want to spend that as effectively as possible, so interoperability and cooperation is important, and we want to have the maximum economic benefits in our economies as well.
Carney met with the German sub manufacturers Tuesday and plans to meet with South Korean manufacturers in October. The Trump administration has threatened to withhold millions in federal highway funding from certain states if they don't require commercial truck drivers to know English before obtaining licenses. U.S. President Donald Trump signed an executive order back in April requiring states to enforce this. The threat to withhold funding comes after 3 people were killed in a crash on a Florida highway involving a commercial truck operated by an undocumented driver who entered the country illegally. Harjinder Singh, the California licensed truck driver involved, faces vehicular manslaughter charges and deportation after making an illegal U-turn that caused the accident. The U.S. Transportation Secretary says the 3 non-compliant states are Washington, California, and New Mexico.
And this is not, just to be clear, this is not just about saying we have some obscure rule that we want them to comply with, that truck drivers speak English proficiently. This is about keeping people safe on the road. We all use the roadway, and we need to make sure that those who are driving big rigs, semis, can understand the road signs, that they've been well trained, and that when they're pulled over by law enforcement, they're stopped by law enforcement, or there's a crash and law enforcement responds, they can effectively communicate what they have on their rig. There might be a history that they have to be able to communicate to law enforcement when they're pulled over or there's an accident. And if they can't do that, that creates a significant issue.
Duffy says the department could withhold about $50 million in federal funding if they do not comply within 30 days and could take further actions. The group representing Alberta's teachers is today set to begin 4 days of mediated contract talks with the province. It comes months after the Alberta Teachers Association voted in favor of strike action and just days before students go back to class. Association head Jason Schilling says educators have had enough and the government needs to make a deal addressing all sticking points from wages to classroom resources. Premier Danielle Smith has said Alberta's current funding levels should be enough to address teachers' frustrations, but Schilling does not agree.
No, because we are the least funded in terms of what school boards have to spend on students and have been for years. We are well below the national average. I know the Premier quoted a number yesterday and on Saturday on her radio show, but the reality is it's much less than that. And it's just not enough to cover the growth of enrollment that we've seen, the lack of hiring of teachers over the course of that student enrollment growth. And it's not kept pace. And I think parents and the public can see that in public schools across the province.
Schilling says teachers have only received a 6% increase over the last 12 years. If negotiations fail and teachers go on strike, the Alberta's Parents Union is hoping that there can be a way for kids to still have school in some form. Currently, a Strike-Proof Alberta students petition campaign has been launched. Jeff Park, Executive Director of the Alberta Parents Union, explains more.
The Strike-Proof Alberta students is very simply that if your school is closed due to a teacher strike, you can take the money that the province would be spending on your child to a school that's open. So charter schools, independent schools are not ATA. Well, there's one independent school that's unionized. The rest are non-ATA education institutions, but tutors and online education and maybe a apprenticeship or something like that, something to make sure that children don't fall behind, that it's in the parents' hands to help children not fall behind in the event of a strike.
Catch the full interview with Jeff Park of the Alberta's Parents Union and BCN's Naveen Day coming up later in the program. A Calgary soldier who went to Ukraine to help in the fight against Russia faces a painful recovery after being burned in a drone attack on Canada Day. 23-year-old Mac Hughes received burns to nearly 30% of his body. Hughes initially joined his father, Paul, in doing volunteer work in the war-torn nation, but joined the armed forces of Ukraine after a close friend died in the fighting. A year and a half later, his life has completely changed.
A Shaheed came into our position and I was running. I jumped against in between a car and a wall, and the Shaheed exploded about 10 meters away from me. And the car took the bulk of the blast, but it got shifted over onto my foot. Just the tire, like the front tire, just pinned my right foot. And I was awake, and I was like, yeah, I'm alive, cool. And then all of a sudden I went to stand up and I couldn't stand up because my foot was pinned. And I started calling for help, and 2 of my teammates showed up and they tried to lift the vehicle, move the vehicle. But then some of the flammable material from the Shaheed, it mixed with some diesel, got really close, got onto my legs caught fire, my pants caught fire, and at that point I looked at my teammates and I asked them to just shoot me because I didn't want to burn to death.
I never taught him bravery, but that's him, that's all him. He and I have been all over our country and all over Ukraine together, and we're lucky enough as a father-son to have a very special bond. A lot of people don't have that, and the fact that he made a decision to help this country out, and was brave enough to even step up to do that, and then how he's been dealing with this very, very severe injury, and the strength that he has, he inspires me. My son inspires me.
Matt Hughes says he has no regrets about fighting for Ukraine and plans to return to the fight when he recovers. Incredible. Here locally, the city of Lethbridge has opened applications today for its Transit Advisory Committee that is returning for the first time since before the pandemic. The goal of the committee is to acquire feedback on the city's transit and paratransit operations. The committee will consist of 2 groups with 12 members each, one group assigned to fixed route service and the other for the Access a Ride service. The city's general manager of transit and transportation says public transit demands in our city have grown at a substantial rate.
We're growing immensely in fixed route transit. So we were 5% increased in the first quarter of 2025. We were actually 10% increase the second quarter of 2025. So we're growing hugely, and that's putting pressure on our buses. So we're trying to accommodate the increased traffic, the increased transit ridership. We know we're totally at capacity with our Access-a-Ride service. We're doing as best we can to accommodate the needs of the general public with mobility issues, and also our dialysis unit at the Lethbridge Hospital. But we're also constrained by our operating budget. So we're hearing back from the public how we can improve that service.
Online applications can be filled out on the city's website, and printed applications are available at the Downtown Park and Ride. Submissions will close on September 30th. Lethbridge police had a very productive weekend nabbing drivers who were either intoxicated or not driving safely. Over the weekend, an LPS targeted enforcement handed out 83 violation tickets for traffic offenses like speeding, stunting, excessive exhaust or noise, and no insurance. 2 drivers were charged with impaired driving, and 1 suspended driver was also nabbed as part of the ongoing enforcement project. Police remind drivers there is 0 tolerance for offenses, and violations will result in tickets. If you're a regular commuter from the city's west side, be aware that crews are back on site at Whoop Up Drive to continue their rehabilitation work. The city of Lethbridge announced that crews will be pouring high-performance concrete for the bridge's expansion joints, and to minimize vibration and ensure integrity, a temporary speed reduction of 30 kilometers an hour will be in effect for westbound drivers. The concrete pour will not impact the peak hour lane changes from 2 to 8 p.m. and motorists are asked to follow all posted signage and exercise caution while crossing. The reduced speed limit is expected to last until this Friday at noon. While the announcement is unrelated to the damage the bridge sustained when a flatbed trailer struck the underside of the bridge, the restriction on heavy load trucks remains in effect. The Chinook Child and Youth Advocacy Center in Lethbridge will receive nearly $61,000 as part of the Government of Alberta's increased support for centers across the province. The government is boosting funding by 10%, meaning 8 centers will receive a total of $3.7 million in 2025. Cyril Turton, Alberta's Minister of Children and Family Services, says these centers are doing important work.
On July 1st, over $300,000 in additional funding was distributed to help address the ongoing sector pressures that are being experienced right across the province, such as rising caseloads. This brings the total investment in 2025 to child advocacy centers and child and youth advocacy centers to $3.7 million right across the province. It was so important for us to help strengthen child advocacy centers that are located in our other mid-sized cities, such as Lethbridge and Medicine Hat, because we want to make sure that those families that are going through some of the most darkest days of their entire lives, they don't have to drive hours and hours to be able to get to an advocacy center.
It's incredibly hopeful to receive this additional support from our provincial government. Prior to this increase of $60,000, we relied really heavily on donations. We receive an additional $60,000 to help offset our operational costs. So really that additional $60,000 gives us a little bit of buffer room. It's going to help us pay for the rent for our facility. We have been open as a child advocacy center for 3 years, and we've seen a steady increase year after year. And part of that is just really establishing those processes with our partners and what that referral pathway looks like. And it's people becoming aware of the service and how to access it as well. So last year alone, we received an increase of 100 referrals from the year prior. And within our 3 years of operating, we have supported over 660 referrals.
The 8 child and youth advocacy centers are in Fort McMurray, Grand Prairie, Edmonton, Lloydminster, Red Deer, Calgary, Medicine Hat, and right here in Lethbridge. Lethbridge Fire and Emergency Services has new equipment to enhance wildfire suppression efforts. The addition is a wildland sprinkler trailer valued at $137,000. According to Chris Jorgensen, an officer with LFES, the system is similar to the one firefighters used during the Waterton Park's wildfires, which played a crucial role in protecting that community. He explains the sprinkler system increases humidity in the area, which helps reduce fire intensity and slows its spread, making it easier for crews to approach, suppress, or extinguish the fire.
The idea is that we can put up a series of large impact sprinklers to create a wet line or a wall, if you will, to stop wildfire from moving. So we can use this to stop a front of fire to come into a neighborhood, or we can use it to surround a structure to protect it individually. Something like the Helen Schuler Center, we could surround that if there was a wildfire event, just to specifically protect that. It's really designed to run alongside the edge of border of the city so that we can stop wildfire from coming in. So approximately 1 kilometer. We've got a pump on each end. When I say sprinkler, you might think of your lawn or garden sprinklers, but these are a lot larger. It's more an agricultural style impact sprinkler. So each one will do about 100 or 150 feet of radius. So it covers quite a large area. So the benefit of that is we can put less sprinklers down in a quicker time frame and get more coverage. So the idea is we'll invest 2 or 3 people to set this up, and it may take 1 hour to 2 hours depending on the conditions or the actual area. And then it can be monitored by just one person. So one person can then look after a kilometer of wet line. And keep managing that.
So it's making a big difference in our suppression model for wildland. Before, for a larger event where we weren't able to stop the front part of the fire, maybe 2011, 2012, those types of fires, this kind of addresses that missing link. So this is going to be able to stop or slow down the fires. We're able to attack and extinguish with our normal tools. So it makes a big difference in adding something we weren't necessarily had before. As the city's built out, the hydrants are one of the first services to go in. So when you look around the city on the maps, you're pretty well supplied with water on the edges of pretty much the entire city.
Equipped with multiple water pumps, hoses, sprinkler heads, and built-in storage, the Wildland Sprinkler Trailer will enable LFES to deploy a comprehensive firefighting strategy in the face of wildfire threats. Well, it is a day of celebration for all the Swifties around the world. Taylor Swift announced on Instagram that she is engaged to NFL player Travis Kelce following a 2-year romance that swept the entertainment and sports world. They made the announcement through a 5-photo joint post on Instagram with a caption that reads, quote, "Your English teacher and your gym teacher are getting married." Kelce was a star tight end for the Kansas City Chiefs and a Super Bowl champion when they met, but Swift's unique level of fame catapulted him into an entirely different orbit. And can I just say, yay, and it's about time. Huge Swiftie right here. Something else to celebrate, this incredible weather, reaching a high of 32 degrees today with sunshine. I will be right back with your full forecast. We reached a steaming high of 32 degrees today with lots of sunshine and basically the same type of forecast expected for Wednesday. It looks like our summer is extending for sure. 31 degrees on Thursday, same thing for Friday, mainly cloudy skies there on Friday, and then Saturday high of 31 degrees, 29 on Sunday, and then 28 degrees on Monday, which is Labor Day, which means we're already into September. So how's that for the start of September weather? I love it. Okay, average high for this time of year, 24, average low 8 degrees. That is getting lower and lower. Record high on this day was back in 1996. It was 34 degrees. And in 1910, Lethbridge saw its coldest on record, which was only 1 degree. Sun rose this morning at 6:38. Sunset this evening at 8:28. So that means we have 13 hours and 50 minutes of daylight today, 4 minutes shorter than yesterday. Okay, on the west coast, a pair of 24s there for both Victoria and Vancouver. Mainly sunny skies. Edmonton still under that heat warning, high of 33 tomorrow. Calgary now under a heat warning as we've got an extended, a heat event that's going to be extending for about a week or so. High of 30 degrees there. Looking to the rest of the prairies, we are seeing mainly sunny skies in most of these cities here. 31 for the high in Saskatoon, 30 in Regina, high of 25 degrees in Winnipeg. In Toronto, we're seeing some increasing clouds throughout the day and a high of 23 degrees, 22 for the high in Ottawa. Same thing for Montreal with mix of sun and cloud for both of those cities. Looking into Atlantic Canada, Fredericton sitting in at 24 degrees tomorrow with clear skies. Halifax could see a bit of shower activity, about 30%. 23 for the high there, 24 in Charlottetown with partly cloudy skies, 20 to 40 kilometer per hour winds there, and clear skies in St. John with a high of 24 degrees, 20 to 40 kilometer per hour there as well. There you have it. That is your forecast. Canada Post lost $407 million before tax in its second quarter as its parcel business fell because of labor uncertainty. That figure is compared with a profit before tax of $46 million a year earlier. The company is in a fresh round of contract talks with postal workers after the employees rejected an offer by the company in a government-ordered vote earlier this year. Canada Post has warned the Postal Service is bleeding millions of dollars in business daily. The proportion of employed Canadian workers from home in May was down compared with a year ago. Stats Canada says those mostly working from home amounted to 17.4% of employed people compared with 18.7% the year before. StatCan says the share of commuters mainly using a car, truck, or van to get to work fell to about 81% in May, down from 2024. Public transit commuters rose to close to 12%, up from the same period last year. The Parliamentary Budget Officer says Canada needs to build 3.2 million new homes in the next decade to close the housing gap. However, the PBO says it's not on track to do that. The budget watchdog says it expects about 2.5 million homes will be built over the next decade, which is well shy of its target. It says at the same time, it expects a sharp decline in the number of new households being formed after Canada cut its immigration targets. Now here's a look at today's markets.
The TSX was up 169 points on the day to finish at 28,339. The Dow was up 135 points to 45,418. The S&P 500 was up 26 to 6465, and the Nasdaq was up 94 points to finish at 21,544. West Texas Intermediate Oil was down $1.48 to $63.31 US per barrel. Natural gas was up 3 cents to $2.73 US. Gold was up $26.48 to $33.9344 US an ounce, and silver was up 4 cents to $38.61 US an ounce. Feed wheat is at $7.21 per bushel. Barley is at $5.66. Canola is at $14.74. And corn is at $7.26 per bushel. Live cattle were up $2.27 to $242.50. Feeder cattle were up $2.37 to $363.22. Lean hogs October contract was up $2.02 to $93.42. and the Canadian dollar was up slightly over the past 24 hours to 72 cents US.
Recapping one of our top stories, Prime Minister Mark Carney continues to play Let's Make a Deal on his 5-day European tour. After agreeing to work more closely with Poland in areas such as defense, cybersecurity, and clean energy. Today, he signed a critical minerals partnership with Germany that encourages the joint public financing of natural resources projects. As the PM makes his way around Europe, he is doing his best to build strong relationships with its leaders. According to Toronto Sun columnist Brian Lilly, Canada has lost its influence in the world, and Carney is looking to regain our place. We'll be chatting with Brian about this and other national stories coming up next. Also, when you see news happening in your community, be sure to send us an email at info@bridgecitynews.ca. You can also visit our website or YouTube channel anytime to check out more of our stories and interviews. Canada's Prime Minister, who was once elbows up, is now elbows down. He's also in Europe once again, this time to sell natural gas, among other items on his agenda. Here to discuss it all is Brian Lilly, Toronto Sun columnist and political commentator. Brian, welcome back.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, who's joining us from outdoors, by the way. Looks great. Okay, Brian, Prime Minister Mark Carney says that he will launch talks with Germany to look at exporting liquid natural gas, or LNG as it's known. He wants to export that to Europe. But former Prime Minister Justin Trudeau has said in the past that there was no business case for selling LNG to Germany. So what's changed in the Liberal Party? Is it just that it's a different leader with differing opinions?
You could put it down to 2 words: Donald Trump. And he has changed everything. And so Canada is now looking and saying, what can we do? Well, of course, our biggest, benefit are all of our natural resources straight across the country. Every part of the country has some form of natural resource that we are really good at exploiting and exporting. Well, Justin Trudeau said there was no business case for selling LNG to Germany when the German chancellor came here and asked for it. So, look, I'm not going to be too hopeful. As with a lot of things with Mark Carney, it's wait and see. So they're going to launch talks to begin discussions about exporting liquefied natural gas, and he's talking about it in the medium term. So this could be a while. I think he should have been talking about this with Poland. Poland imports more than 17 billion cubic meters of natural gas every year. They need suppliers. We've got the product. You should be talking about this with Latvia as well, with Ukraine. All of these countries wanted our products. The U.S. has been going in under Trump and getting deals to buy it already. So hopefully we speed up the talks, because he said we've got to build things fast. Let's get things going and make sure that we are the supplier of choice.
Yeah. Okay. So, Brian, you mentioned there Poland and Latvia and Ukraine, which actually were also stops on Carney's tour of Europe. So there's been a lot of photo ops. There's been a lot of announcement. But has there been anything concrete happening?
It's been a lot of sizzle. And if you're looking for the steak, keep looking. So even when he went to Ukraine and he announced $2 billion for drones and other technology, that was something that he'd already announced in Kananaskis at the G7. So, he's trying to make sure he's got face time. We have to remember that Mark Carney was excluded from the big meeting just over a week ago in Washington, D.C. All these partners that came together to try and help Ukraine with the peace deal, well, it was the head of NATO. It was the head of the EU. It was the heads of government for Britain, France, Germany, Italy, Finland, not Canada. We were excluded because we're not seen as a reliable ally and partner. Carney is trying to reverse that. It's got a lot of work to do, though. 10 years of Justin Trudeau being all sizzle and no steak. We have a bad reputation on the international stage now. Don't let people tell you otherwise. It's true. We're isolated or ignored in a lot of capitals. and Carney needs to try and undo that damage. I believe this was part of what he was doing.
Oh boy. All right. Damage control. Okay. So last week's big announcement that Carney was putting his elbows down is still reverberating, Brian. So will this move win us any favor at all in Washington? What do you think?
Well, it's got to do something to thaw the icy relationship with Washington. I think I was saying to you last week, in March when Premier Doug Ford from Ontario was down there, he was told by Howard Lutnick that you're our top priority. Once we do our Liberation Day tariffs on April 2nd, you're at the top of the list for wanting to get a deal. And then we came close to a deal and things fell apart. And I've been hearing since May, since June, and on that Ambassador Kristen Hillman is part of the problem, and she is still our chief negotiator. Things fell apart. So, taking away these counter tariffs, which the Americans were really irritated about because they were on CUSMA compliant goods. We put them on CUSMA compliant goods when they didn't. They have tariffed our steel, our aluminum, copper, all of that. But we were violating the trade agreement, they say. I mean, we can both go back and forth on that, but they were just fed up. I mean, we weren't getting calls returned. Carney didn't speak to Trump for 2 months almost over the way things have been going. I'm told doors have been closed to Canadian negotiators. So Dominic LeBlanc is going to go down, meet with Howard Lutnick, the Commerce Secretary, and hopefully start moving things along. Carney was asked several times, did you get assurances from Trump that removing these will help the talks? And he was told yes.
Okay. Speaking of Washington, Brian, why did embassy staff in Washington need to hire a Democrat firm to teach them how to understand Republicans? What's going on?
Yeah, this would be like hiring Katie Telford, Justin Trudeau's former chief of staff, to go and teach someone how to communicate with the Conservatives, what matters to Pierre Poilievre and his team. You don't do that. There's all kinds of lobbying firms and consulting firms in capitals like Edmonton or Ottawa or Washington. They hired a firm called Signal Group LLC. And this is a group headed up by a man whose claim to fame was reversing a decade of the Democrats not winning back in 2018. Who was president in 2018? Donald Trump. What did this guy do? He helped take the House back for the first time in a decade. And that's who you're getting to teach embassy staff how to deal with conservative media, how to adjust your talking points to, so that they fall in the right way, so that you're speaking to someone in a language they understand or with a message that will get through to them. Well, why are you hiring Democrats for that? There are plenty of firms that have both Democrats and Republicans. There are firms that are just Republican. This was unreal. But part of the problem is, and this goes back to Ambassador Hillman, is that this is an embassy that has not cultivated relationships with Republicans. They didn't in Trump's first term. They didn't in the Biden years, and they're not doing it now. When you're a diplomat, you have to talk to all sides because governments change power. And so the ambassador that Trump has here in Canada, Pete Hoekstra, he's going to be talking to liberals because they're in power, but he's also going to be meeting with the conservatives, expressing the concern of the Trump government, hearing from them, gaining intel. They just haven't been doing that in Washington at the Canadian embassy. They were all in on Biden, and they don't know what to do with Trump, even though he's been there before. They should.
Oh, boy. Okay, Brian, getting back to Germany for a second here. So while we're pitching liquid natural gas to Germany, they are pitching submarines to us. So tell us about the Royal Canadian Navy narrowing their choice for buying new subs to just 2 countries.
Yeah, so we've narrowed the list down to 2 companies from 2 countries. It's either going to be German-made subs or South Korean. Now, they're both allies of Canada. We have free trade agreements with both of them to some extent, and both are very good in building these types of equipment. So we're buying 12 conventional submarines. Remember, we bought those ones back in the Chrétien era, used subs from Britain that, well, I think only one can still go underwater. Our Navy is a shambles. We have neglected it for far too long.
Isn't that the job of a submarine?
Yeah,
is to
yeah. I mean,
submerge.
for a while, the West Edmonton Mall, when it still had its submarine, had more working subs than the
boy.
Canadian Navy.
Oh.
That's a shame. So we're going to be buying them. It's down to either Germany or South Korea. This is a good move, and of course, the German Chancellor putting the full court press on Prime Minister Carney while he's there, trying to get favor and say that this could be part of expanding a Canadian-German relationship. And of course, we know that Mark Carney wants to move Canada closer to Europe. He has called us the most European of non-European countries. So my guess is it's going to go to the German firm. But South Korean president, by the way, was in Washington yesterday at the White House. They're trying to get a better deal with Donald Trump as well.
Oh my gosh, we'll have to see what happens there. Okay, so Brian, we know that the Carney government is looking to cut spending in the upcoming budget. And it seems that some departments think it will be a difficult job. And a reporter from the National Post was added to a group chat of top staffers at environment and climate change. And it looks like they don't want to cut. So what did we learn here?
This was funny. I mean, these things can happen, but you should really watch who you're putting in your group chat. So there's this long thread going on. Suddenly, reporters from National Post gets dropped into it, and they were able to see some of the discussion until they were removed from the chat. And they were discussing how difficult it is to meet these spending cut targets that they've been given. 7.5% for the coming year's budget, 10% the following year, 15% after that. And of course, they're doing what every department and bureaucrat wants to do when they don't want to cut. And none of them ever want to cut. They're finding things that the public will notice. And so one of the things they said, well, we could cut this, and it's to do with keeping algae blooms in control on the Great Lakes. Well, of course, Great Lakes are huge. A lot of people live near them. You're going to see if the algae is suddenly out of control. And then you'll say, well, you have to do something. And then they turn around and say, well, we need more money. So to me, what I saw in these text messages, of course, I didn't see the full text messages, just the story that was published. It looked like the standard political game of let's do what we can to make sure that we don't actually get cuts.
Okay. Brian, you were writing recently about how the Immigration Department wasn't releasing new numbers. And so the data just got released late Friday and shows the government is blowing past their targets.
Yeah, so they release monthly data sets in terms of how many temporary foreign workers, how many people from the international mobility program, how many permanent residents are arriving. And suddenly they just stopped after the March numbers were posted at the beginning of May. This was noticed by conservative immigration critic Michelle Rempel. There were questions asked. The department just said, oh, well, we are just changing how this will be presented. We're updating the website. It'll be out soon. Late Friday in the evening, they post the numbers. There was supposed to be a cap on temporary foreign workers, excluding agriculture, of 82, I believe it was 82,000. We're already at 105,000 and year to date. So that doesn't include the month of August. In the first 6-7 months, we're past the target. International mobility program, same thing. We are well past the target. So the conservatives are calling this out, saying, look, we've got a housing crisis. We've got out of control youth unemployment. We've got high unemployment generally. And the Liberal government isn't even following the caps that they said they would put on. Remember, Justin Trudeau said in April of 2024, I believe it was, that we're bringing in people faster than we can absorb them, that this is adding to suppressing wages. It's adding to the housing problem. Last November, the Liberals said they were going to take steps to control this. Mark Carney said during the April election campaign that we can't bring in more people than we can easily and comfortably absorb, that he would change it, and we're not doing it. We're still bringing in people at record numbers. This is not good for the labor market. It's not good for the housing market. It's not good for Canada.
Brian Lilly, Toronto Sun columnist, thanks so much for joining us again today from outside. Always a pleasure.
Thank you.
You know, time just seems to fly by. Back to school time is at the door. Lots going on, including a possible teacher strike in Alberta. Parental rights in our school system is an ongoing concern as well. Joining us from Lethbridge today to discuss this is Jeff Park. He is the Executive Director of the Alberta Parents Union. Jeff, it's great to have you back with us.
Great to be back. Thanks, Robbie.
So, Jeff, you've been with us a number of times, but for those that are just tuning in or don't know who you are, can you just give us a brief overview of what your organization is all about?
Absolutely. We're a grassroots organization of parents from all over Alberta, and we're dedicated to making sure that parents' voices are front and center as we advocate for an excellent education system in public, Catholic, Francophone, separate charter schools, independent schools, and home education.
And so now, like I mentioned in my opening, the Alberta teachers could possibly go on a strike soon. And at the time of today's recording, they are in the middle of negotiations. So hopefully things will work out. But what are teachers concerned about at this time?
Sure. I mean, as always, part of the negotiation is about wages, but they've really been emphasizing, and right now they're sort of at 12% raise over 4 years, one of which would be retroactive. So they'll just get a lump sum pretending they had that raise, and then 3% ongoing from there. And so that's obviously always a negotiation point, and we could see that be what breaks the deadlock. But what they're really emphasizing this time is class sizes, classroom complexity, violence in the classroom. These sorts of issues have been really front and center in their minds and in the negotiations this time, and is probably the main reason why the mediator's recommendation was rejected back in June.
Now, you have a strike-proof Alberta students petition campaign on the way. What is this all about?
Sure. Parents and our kids, the actual students that the education system is supposed to be for, don't have a seat at the table, right? This is a negotiation between the government and the Alberta Teachers Association, the union, and so we want to make sure that the one group, the most vulnerable group, the students who could be most harmed by an extended strike and who have no opportunity to negotiate to prevent a strike, that those vulnerable students aren't the ones who are harmed. So the strike-proof Alberta students is very simply that if your school is closed due to a teacher strike, you can take the money that the province would be spending on your child to a school that's open. So charter schools, independent schools are not ATA. Well, there's one independent school that's unionized. The rest are non-ATA education institutions, but tutors and online education and maybe a apprenticeship or something like that. Something to make sure that children don't fall behind, that it's in the parents' hands to help children not fall behind in the event of a strike. So yes, that petition is on our website under the Action tab, albertaparentsunion.ca. Under the Action tab, you'll find it, and we have been seeing lots of support for that.
Great. Now, Alberta recently passed a bill that requires parental notification and consent for any changes in a student's preferred name or pronouns at school. Will this be enforced at schools this year? And if so, does this necessarily mean all teachers will follow these guidelines?
Absolutely. So that does come into force starting here on September 2nd, I suppose. I think September 1st legally, but the school starts back September 2nd for most folks. And so that will be enforced. So if anyone has an example of that not being followed, now I believe officially they need to make a plan to share that information with the parents, so that it's not necessarily going to be immediately shared. It's that they're making a plan to share the any name and pronoun change with the parents. But if any parent or community member feels that they're seeing that rule or that law now being violated, they should definitely let us know and let the ministry know, and we'll make sure that that's being enforced.
So now, another controversial topic is or question that I have for you is do parents have the right to have their children opt out of classes or opt their children out of classes that teach on sexual or moral issues that the parents object to?
Sure. Now, it's not as broad as all moral issues. We would like to see a broader set of parental empowerment on these issues, but for sexual orientation, gender identity, and human sexuality content that is being formally taught. So clubs don't count, potentially, depending on how it's done, an all-school assembly or something might not count, but formal teaching of those issues, parents not only need to be informed ahead of time, but now have the opportunity to opt in rather than opt out. And we think that's part of the same suite of law changes, and we think that is an excellent move to put the ball back in the parents' court and to change the incentives for the school to be more forthcoming. Because if you're not quite sure and you have to take the action to opt out, a lot of parents, a lot of Canadian parents are going to be more likely to just, oh, well, I won't make a ruckus. But if we have to opt in, then the incentive is to share any information we might want so that we can know what's going on and maybe more likely to opt in. And if we do see a big change in the rates of kids in these classes, I think that would be some evidence that schools were not being as forthcoming as we would hope there, that they were sort of hiding behind the ambiguity there before. So we'd love to see this open up more open conversation between schools and parents so that and we'd love to see that reflected in pretty much the same number of kids in these classes.
Now, it goes without saying that kids and teachers can get to know each other very well given the amount of time they spend with each other over the years. But it's also important for parents to get to know the teacher as well, since they are really educating their child for several hours a day and for the majority of the year. So what should parents do to get to know their teachers and to express to them any concerns that they may have with what is being taught or how it's being taught?
Absolutely. And we do like to emphasize that parents should start with a strong relationship with the teacher, to make every effort to make a human connection and to have that relationship. And importantly, don't immediately go over the teacher's head to a principal or a school board trustee if you have a problem. The order of operations is you try to sort it out with the classroom teacher first, then the principal, and then, by the way, we would say that you do want to go to your school board trustee because that's the person actually accountable to you. There, you can talk to another member of administration if your school board trustee directs you to that person. But if you have a new problem or something like that, make sure to go back to your school board trustee. That's again the person that you can fire every 4 years and that is responsible to hear from you. And so you want to make sure that you're keeping them in the loop of issues you're having that aren't getting resolved at the school level.
And this last spring, the province launched a survey asking for public input around the issue of some sexually explicit books that were discovered in some public school libraries available to all students. So this includes elementary kids. So can you share what the results of the survey were?
Sure. So 42% of respondents to the survey said that these materials should never be accessible to any students. Only 14% said they should be accessible to students of all ages, including elementary school. And interestingly, that seems to reflect the same 14% who, for instance, say that parents don't need to know if the schools change a name or pronoun in schools. It seems to pretty consistently be that 14% in a lot of these surveys and a lot of these polling and all that. Unfortunately, it does seem like that 14% is let's say, overrepresented in school boards and school bureaucracies and so forth, and especially overrepresented in the librarian profession, unfortunately. One of the things that was striking to us is how much parents do trust librarians in these surveys. Parents do trust the librarians, but that trust is not returned. When asked if parents should have any role in deciding on library books, librarians came in the lowest in saying that parents should have no role whatsoever in determining library books, whereas parents expressed high levels of support for librarians. So we've got a mismatch of trust there that was very concerning to us.
That is a very interesting dynamic, and parents often express concern about what might be in the curriculum, and this is an age-old debate here, but you point out that much of what is taught in schools is being brought in by individual teachers, principals, or school boards, and this is like separate from what the provincial curriculum introduces. So why is this allowed, and what needs to change?
Sure. I think there's some confusion because a lot of people justifiably use the word curriculum as if it means all the books and all the materials and everything that you would need to teach a particular subject. The Alberta government, and I would say most Canadian provincial governments, use that term in a looser way to describe a loose set of standards, what we expect the outcomes to be, what we expect kids to have learned at certain points in their, well, at the end of each grade is how it's structured. And so it's good that, because, for instance, you want charter schools and independent schools and home educators who are trying to align with the curriculum and so forth. You want them to have the flexibility to nevertheless bring in other things, and so if we're going to require the curriculum across so many diverse education opportunities, then it's good for it to be a looser set of outcomes. But you're definitely right that we've seen a lot of these outside materials that are basically what many people might think of as a curriculum outside the curriculum being brought in to the classroom, and especially that seems like it's especially available and used on the most controversial issues, on issues of gender identity, human sexuality, on issues of climate change and economics and these sorts of issues, and frankly, many times it seems like on issues of U.S. politics that are being brought into Alberta classrooms. So these are the sorts of things that we mentioned in our petition, Tell Us What Kids Are Learning. We did get a partial win on that in the sense that the same suite of laws that we were talking about with the pronouns and the opt-in also required these outside materials to be approved by the Education Ministry, and that looks like we're going to get some good regulation around that on these things being disclosed to parents as well, so that we get, but only, sorry, I should say it's a partial win because only on the sexual orientation, gender identity, human sexuality type issues, not on sort of the broader controversial issues where these sorts of things are coming in. So we're looking forward to seeing those rolled out. Again, that's coming into force this school year, and we hope to see some improvement there, and we'll be speaking up if we see some more things to improve.
Jeff Park is the Executive Director of the Alberta Parents Union. Jeff, thank you so much for your time today.
Thanks so much, Naveen.
I'm Naveen Day on behalf of all of us here at Bridge City News. Thanks for watching.